Welcome to Paradigm Playbook, the podcast on the business of sports. With 50 plus years of experience, Steve Cook shares insights weekly, featuring top playmakers shaping the industry. Get ready to script your next play. Now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook. I'm the host, Steve Cook, and I'm alongside Alexander and Kevin. I met them through a social media post that they went out. It was so interesting to me. We got into a discussion and we have some commonalities and interests. What they do is help sports businesses get more customers. So I thought that would be interesting to everyone in the audience, basically. So Alex and Kevin, we have mostly sports entrepreneurs in the audience. They have businesses that are anywhere from $500,000 to $10 million. That's the kind of audience we have. So I think they're going to be interested. But before we go there, if you want to just take a minute and each of you introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Steven, I do want to thank you for having us on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. I think it's really funny how we managed to connect. My name is Alex, and this is my business partner, Kevin. We run our company Stargaze together, just a two-man team.
I like to ask the question, in the 10th grade, were you a jock, a nerd, a class clown? Tell me about you in 9th grade or 10th grade.
Oh, ninth grade. Ninth grade's actually when we met each other. So this is back in high school. I'll let you take it off first, Kevin.
So to answer your question, I would consider both of us class clowns. Funny enough, we met in a drama class as an elective in freshman year of high school. We separated because he was gone to the Marines and I went off to college at UIC. And then he calls me up one day while I was on my way to a grocery store. He's like, "Hey, dude, you want to start a business?" And I was like, "You know what? Sure. Why not?" With no game plan in mind.
So it's that easy to find a partner.
Yeah.
For all the listeners, if you had been the first one to call Kevin, he may be your partner right now. So Stargaze is the name of the company. And tell me, when you called up Kevin and said you want to start a business, did you have this in mind, or did you have to go through a kind of a fact-finding, brain dump? Okay, here's 20 ideas of things we could do.
I would definitely say it's the latter. I had absolutely zero plan when I called Kevin. All I knew was that I wanted to do something, because when I got out the military, I went straight to college, and it was kind of weird only having to show up for a few classes a day, and then I had the rest of the day to myself. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So I just knew I needed some sort of a project on the side. When I called Kevin, it was like, all right, my first and only goal is to get him to agree, and then everything else we could figure out later, right? Our initial plan was actually to get into the drop shipping business model. But then we sat down for a few days, looked into it, and it didn't seem sustainable. It also didn't look particularly ethical, to be honest. So we dropped that idea. And then it was actually Kevin's idea to bring up social media marketing.
I used to be a gymnast in college. And then a little bit after college, I was in sales. And then immediately after that, I went into becoming a ninja instructor for Ultimate Ninjas. And so the background to us starting a social media company is because in college, I have a website design degree. So I figured we're already a little tech savvy given our age. And then I have a background in website design. I'm sure we could make something out of that.
It just kind of turned into this thing like he already has the background in web design. I had a background in nothing, so I was flexible. And then he was already kind of in that gymnastics and ninja space just from work. So we just put it all together and here we are.
So I responded to the ad. And then when Alex immediately followed up and wanted to know how he could sign me up, I said, well, I really am not looking to do this. I'm just interested in your process and how it may help my clients. And then we talked a little bit about it, and it came out that we have similar interests and background. Is this considered email or social media marketing that you're doing?
We would be considered a social media marketing agency.
Okay, so where did I see this ad? Where did I find that?
You were most likely either scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, because those are the two platforms we have our ad on. And you most likely saw my face talking about how there's a better way to grow your gym rather than just hoping that more people come along or begging for referrals. We had a little video up. Clicking on that video directed you to a landing page where you had the option of opting in to get our free guide. And then on the back end, once you get your guide, we also try to upsell on a quick strategy call in which we sit down with owners one-on-one, talk about their business, get to know their current situation, and also offer some free insights into what's been working well recently for other gymnastics and ninja gym owners. At that point, once we give the value, if it makes sense, we try to get another call booked and put together a custom made proposal for them. But worst case scenario, they don't want to move forward. At the very least, they get some value out of the entire exchange.
I think it's difficult in that we're all trying to attract children into the business, but we have to engage the parents. What is working now? We're trying to get kids, and if you can try to not focus on gymnastics or ninja, but just say, are there keywords that will attract any parents to look at what we're offering?
In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter if it's gymnastics, ninja, basketball, baseball. All parents have a couple of things that worry them. It's all similar across all parents, right? All parents want their kids to be on screens less. All parents want their kids to be healthy, have that social setting where they get to be with other kids. Like anything that's good for their child, that is a concern of a parent. So if you can position your gym and your product as something that helps parents with those pain points, it's not necessarily all that hard to get them to take action. In fact, I would argue it's easier to get a parent to take action for their children than it is to get them to take action for themselves, which is why so many gyms that are adult-based have a harder time getting people into the doors.
You're going straight to the problem you're trying to solve before you describe what you're doing. You're not saying we have more black belts here than anywhere else, or you're not bragging on yourself as much as you are addressing the problem. Am I reading that right?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, no parents out there scrolling social media worried about like whether or not their kid can be a black belt. What they really want is something to keep their child healthy and happy, and then everything else is just kind of a consequence of that. But what you really want to do is sell the parent on the result, on what they really want, as opposed to just some arbitrary thing that happens.
So we're looking for parents that have kids that are, let's say, 4 to 8 years old. Where are those parents engaged in social media? Do you have that dialed in?
Absolutely. I'm actually a big proponent of the Meta platform, so that would encompass Facebook and Instagram together. I just think that parents are always on Meta, and that's what we've been using for all of our lead generation vehicles. Now, I will also give Google Ads some credit as well for gymnastics, for example, which is an industry that's been around for a while. You can also pick some low-hanging fruit, so to speak, of parents searching for gymnastics classes near them. But I would say that from my experience, Meta has been the best platform for generating interest.
In the early days of websites, everybody talked about keyword search. Does that still apply to social media? Is it a keyword driven, or is it more algorithm? You're going to get the people that have been following those topical things.
The keywords really come into play more so on the Google platform. When it comes to advertising on Meta, that is strictly interest-based targeting and algorithm, right? So you're not actually looking for someone that's searching for something. Rather, you're trying to get your ad in front of the right audience and disrupt their day as they're scrolling through social media, which is why it's super important to have an ad creative and copywriting that makes them stop scrolling and appeals to them right away, because you only have a split second to catch that person's attention.
I find it extremely interesting in that I don't have young children and I don't have a gymnastic club, yet your post found me, or I found it. I think it found me because I wasn't looking for you. I didn't know who you were, but you're right. Your face showed up. And when I heard the word gymnastics, because I'm involved, I started listening. That's pretty exciting. Is that something that, I mean, obviously you set out to do that. I guess it's because I read other things that are gymnastics. Is that why I got the ad?
Yeah, that should be a huge part of it. The algorithm works in mysterious ways. Sometimes we don't even know. But considering the fact you're already within the industry, that's ultimately what we look for, because the majority would be business owners of some kind.
And what I would add on to that is, as good as Meta's targeting settings are, and as good as the algorithm is, especially recently with the changes they made to Meta's AI, it's still not perfect, right? And so I would say that out of this last month, I could tell you we generated about 20 leads for our business. Other than you and maybe 2 others, everyone else is a gymnastics owner. But every now and then you do get the occasional lead that has nothing to do with who you're targeting. And that's just the way the game is, right?
You know, old men like me that are in business spend more time on LinkedIn than we do on Meta, because I do a podcast and that we promote on Meta. I think that's probably why it finds me. And I do have that audience. So how much is just knowing what to post versus paying for something that's going to have a faster path to the right audience?
Right.
Oh, yeah, there's something I want to bring up, because we do encounter this sometimes, but we are specifically in the lead generation model within social media marketing. So talking about posts, usually we hear something like, oh, you guys do like social media posting? Is that what you do? We don't necessarily do that, although making creatives is an aspect within ads, as you saw, like our video, for example.
We're not managing the social media accounts of businesses. Rather, we run the ads for them that generate the leads. But what they do on their own social media organically is kind of up to them. That's a separate world from what we do. So we really just focus on building the funnel through paid media traffic to gather those leads. And then on the back end, we have a system to nurture them, essentially.
If you're doing paid ad on Meta and it's generating leads, where are they captured in a Meta platform, or are they going straight to a CRM, or where are they getting captured?
A great question. So what we've seen work really, really well in the last year or so is keeping the actual lead capture form within the native platform, so within Meta, as opposed to directing them to a website. Once that lead submits the information, when we first started our agency, that's all we used to do was like, hey, we generate the leads, and then you take that lead and you do it as you please. We quickly learned that that's not enough, right? If you want to stand out on this market, you have to provide more value. Honestly, a lot of gym owners, they do one thing really well, which is run their gym and put on good classes, but maybe like the sales and the CRM aspect is something they're not too familiar with. So what we ended up doing was we created the CRM system where the lead goes, and a lot of that is now automated. As far as the lead's concerned, they're getting followed up with right away. They're receiving text messages, they're receiving emails, and some of it looks organic as if a real person is actually following up with you, but mainly it's automated. And our only goal is to try to get them to respond. Once that person responds, our client gets notified, and now they're able to actually text that lead and engage with them through our platform and get them booked for a trial class.
Maybe this isn't a fair question, but what's a realistic expectation out of running a Meta ad in terms of number of leads, or is that not quantifiable?
It is quantifiable. I would say that it depends on a couple of variables, though. Some gyms are in kind of more rural areas, and some gyms are in more densely populated areas. So the audience size that you have to work with definitely affects how many leads you can get. That's number one. Number two, definitely what budget you have can affect it as well. If you're spending $20 a day, you could definitely be getting leads. And we actually start most clients off at around 20. But if you're spending 50, you're definitely outcompeting the person spending 20. So you might just be getting more leads.
If I'm in a suburban area and I spend $20, is it reasonable that I get 10 leads, 5 leads? What's reasonable over a period of a month?
Over a period of the month, honestly, it does slightly depend on, again, your area, but I could say that the last year we plugged into our system, they were doing about 20 a day for the first month, and I believe they got around 50 leads that first month.
50 leads. Okay. So then it's up to them to close them and convert them into members. When you're spending money for ads in social media, you pay so much just to put it out there, or is it connected at all with how many people click on it, or is there a click rate in this or no?
Absolutely. The way the platform itself works is every time you pay Meta money, you're essentially paying for it just to place your ad in front of your target audience, right? So they don't actually charge you per lead. They charge you per every 1,000 impressions, meaning people saw your ad 1,000 different times, right? Now, where the algorithm comes into play is based off the targeting settings you input and based off of the budget you have. It then tries to take that money, allocate it in the most efficient way possible to put the placements in front of those people that are most likely to take action, right? So you're not actually paying per lead, you're just paying for the actual real estate, the digital real estate you're taking out.
I'm starting to get it now. I'm dense. I grew up before all this stuff. If I were to come to you and say, listen, I would really like to get 50 new clients between now and Christmas, and I know that if I talk to 100, I'm going to sign up half of them. So do you work based on a target approach, or is that unrealistic?
We hesitate to ever have discussions like that with potential clients. They do ask us sometimes, like, if I get X amount of leads, how much can I expect from that? And it really depends on so many different variables. Like, number one, are you following our system? Because we do help teach clients the best ways to follow up and the best ways to use our CRM, because every single action you do has an automation attached to it. It's really hard to guarantee results for someone. Like, I can get you 100 leads, right? I can tell you the best way to follow up. I could have a system that is automated on the back end and does all the work for you. But ultimately, anyone that's saying, oh, we're going to guarantee you 50 new students with the next amount of time frame, they're lying to you. Because you never truly know, right? Every single market's a bit different. Every location's a bit different. So it really depends. All I can do is tell people, hey, this has worked like this for this gym. This has worked like this for this gym. What we can do is take that same system, implement it into your gym, give you all the tools, guide you on how to use them, And realistically, you can probably expect similar results, but we can't guarantee anything.
Yeah, typically the best campaigns that we've ever launched, usually the pattern is that the gym owner puts in the effort to grow their gym. We have a couple clients where they have their campaign up, but they're barely reaching out or they're barely proactive in the campaign process. So typically they can see less returns just from the lack of effort.
Yeah, so basically, in other words, you could bring them leads and they could screw it up and not have a good closing procedure to get them signed up.
To a certain extent, yes, we do offer trainings on how to utilize our system, and there are automations to remove as much manual workload on the client. It's more of a hybrid system. The client does not have to do everything. There is a functional system on the back end, but there is still a certain level of manual effort that needs to take place, especially because people aren't dumb. They could tell if they were thrown into this automated system and they're just chugging along in it. Now they don't want to respond. So there has to be a certain level of human connectivity in the system. And so what we see is the gym owners that really want to see their gym grow, and they hop in the CRM every day and they keep it organized and they follow the people the right way and they utilize the system and let the automations do their thing as well. They typically see the best results.
So whether they work with you or they do it all on their own, they still got to put the time in. There's no magic bullet here. It's just increasing your chances by following some systems that you've tested and find true. Is it more effective in one sport activity than the other? And I know you haven't tried everything, but is there any indication in your mind that it would be more effective in a well-known activity versus a lesser known activity? I can give you an example. I run a baseball academy and we have 2 classes that teach cricket. There's a different population here. They like cricket, but I don't know how to get to the cricket players. Baseball is pretty easy because it's most of the families. Cricket is difficult. Is Meta non-discriminatory in who it searches out with that algorithm?
I firmly believe that no matter what type of business you're in, the majority of the times your audience is on Meta. It's just all about finding the correct targeting settings that actually reaches them and then having the correct creative and copywriting to grab their attention. Right now, to answer your earlier question, we primarily work with ninja gyms at the moment, but we are working with a gymnastics facility as well. And there's kind of some trade-offs, some pros and cons. Like, for example, with ninja, I find that ninja is still a relatively new sport. I know until Kevin started working for one of those locations as a coach, I didn't even know that it was an option to go to a ninja facility and take classes there. I never heard of that. I definitely think they have the advantage for parents because when they hear about it, it's new, it's exciting, it gets their kids to be active, build their coordination skills, and the kids have fun doing it. So in that aspect, I find it's easier to get leads. However, when we pivoted over and started running gymnastics ads, this particular gym we're working for, they also have a ninja program, but it's been a lot easier getting gymnastics leads for them, right? So I think in that aspect, it's a more established sport. You're already a gymnastics gym. So even if you have a ninja program, it's just so much easier to get those gymnastics leads. They're out there as well.
Okay, you keep spurring new questions. If we're developing the ad that's going to run, do you recommend having a very targeted ad? So if we're going to do this ad, it's going to be just ninja, or do we want an ad that says we do gymnastics, ninja, dance? Do you put it all in one?
That's a great question. We always want to start off hyper targeted with our copywriting. So if we're going after ninja leads, our ad is for the ninja program and it's directed at parents, and we're letting them know about the benefits of that ninja program and how that program can solve their pain points. If we also want to advertise gymnastics, we'll have a completely separate ad set, completely separate funnel on the back end with different automations. Everything is organized in its own funnel for a couple of reasons. Number one, you get to be very targeted with the way that you speak to parents. If they're being spoken to directly, there's a bigger chance they'll actually respond. And number two, for the sake of actually tracking performance, it's much easier to keep everything organized and then compare, like, okay, is gymnastics more profitable for you? Is ninja? And then we're able to scale the winning campaign and help the gym grow.
If you're creating an ad, are we creating a video or a photograph, or what are we creating?
Another fantastic question. Typically, we've tested this a lot and we've heard people on both sides that like to argue about this. But what we've seen work for this niche specifically are static images to start. Obviously, there is a place for video, but typically when you're going through something like creative fatigue, this is when people are seeing the same image too many times. They get bored. They don't want to click anymore. It's a lot easier to replace a static image rather than constantly having to re-record and think of another concept for a video. But there's room for both, but typically static, at least when we start, is what we like to go for.
So a lot of my clients have multiple programs. They have gymnastics and ninja. And if we're targeting specifics, are we alternating days? Let's say I'm spending $20 a day. Do I need to create 30 ads?
No, the way we do it is, even if they have multiple programs, we'll hone in on which program you want to focus on first, right? So if you only have budget that supports one ad set, fine, let's find your most profitable program or one that you want to grow. We'll focus specifically on that. And then within that actual ad set, we usually start off with 3 creatives max. That way we do have a variety and we get to split test what resonates with the audience more, but it's also not overwhelming and we're not splitting our budget too much either. So we'll typically start off with 3 ads underneath one ad set within a campaign, pick a winner. Once we find a winning creative, we'll split test the copywriting, see if there's a different style that resonates with parents more. Once we find a winner on that, then we can start scaling the ad, making sure that the backend system is nice and tight too, so we're not leaking leads. And once the system is fully optimized, we can start looking at new ads if you want another class to be grown, or you can just start putting more money into the already profitable funnel.
I've identified 2 things. One is there's a lot of questions to ask. And the second thing I've identified is that I know very little about this. So I appreciate that. We're out of time, but before we shut down, I want to go back and, if you will, introduce the name of your company and how people could connect directly with you if there's a website or whatever.
Our website would be StargazeX.com. And right on our website, you could click the button. There's going to be a calendar. You could actually book a one-on-one strategy session with us. I do want to make this clear. This is not really meant to be a sales call. Yes, obviously, if it makes sense, we would like to work together. But during this call, it's mainly just us sitting down with you, asking questions about your gym, your current situation, giving some free value as to what's been currently working, what trends we're seeing, how to target people. And then after that, if it makes sense, we'll hop on a second call.
Or just like this, Stephen, if they want to just hop on because they have some questions about us and how we do our work, we're happy to do that as well.
So 2 things I got to bring up. One, obviously, these guys, they're willing to share information. I just picked their brains for a half hour and haven't paid them a dime. And then real quick before we sign off, explain how we got to Stargaze X.
When Kevin and I sat down in the first days of deciding to start a business, it was just like, what do we call it? I think we spent 3 days just going back and forth, Googling different good business names and what can we possibly call this thing. You got to realize at that time, we didn't know what niche we wanted to be in. We didn't know what specialization our agency was going to take. So it was very hard to brand us in a way that would make sense for ninja owners because we didn't know we were going to be in that space. Ultimately, it came down to 2 things. I like space as a concept. I like SpaceX, so I thought of the word Stargaze, threw the word X at the back of it, and called it a day. And Kevin just happened to agree with it.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for that darn Elon, it may have just been called X. Okay, we're out of time, guys. I really appreciate it. And anybody that wants to connect, reach out to them, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for tuning in to Paradigm Playbook. Explore more at ParadigmPlaybook.com. Want to be a playmaker? Contact StephenJCook.com. Share this episode to spread the word about sports industry opportunities. See you next week.